impressive. This man has held 6 different belts. The only team to win all 3 major belts. The Crockett Cup, this man's a legend in his
How am I not going to like this guy, right? He knows everything.
Welcome to another edition of Hero Television. I'm your host, Paul Myers, along with Johngy, my co-host, and this month, actually the next 2 months, you're going to see this gentleman, this entertainer extraordinaire himself, Keith Semple. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
I appreciate it, sir. Thanks, John.
And when people see you all over Chicago, not only have they seen you play in Chicago, they've seen your story about becoming a citizen here and your journey to get to Chicago. First of all, when you were growing up, because you were growing up in Northern Ireland, did you ever think you were going to get into the music industry?
I pretty much knew I was going to be a musician from probably 9 years old. I started playing piano then, and that was only when my uncle gave me a guitar. Or, well, my dad bought me the guitar, but my uncle taught me. And I was like, all right, I want to be a rock star. And I was like 13, I think, so it was a done deal.
When you were growing up, who were your heroes growing up, as far as first a musician and then maybe your personal life?
Well, my dad has always been, if it wasn't for my dad, I probably would have quit a few times. You know, he really was like, you got to go for it. You got to go for it, you know. Don't listen to people. You got to strive. And every time I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere or things were not going as I planned, he always kept me going. And then my uncle, of course, who actually taught me guitar in the first place. Musically, though, probably Bryan Adams, because he just seemed to be representative of everything I wanted to be, you know, successful, writing good music, songs everybody likes, and just doing it, you know, out gigging, and he's still gigging, like 35 years later, he's still rocking away and traveling the world.
So when and where did you start performing, publicly?
It's funny, my first ever show, like live first ever show, was at my great granny's 100th birthday party, and I was 13, and I only realized later in years how ironic it was that I performed Knocking on Heaven's Door at the time, but I never thought of that until later. But after that, I pretty much, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And then the school had a big bash talent type show. I think I was 14, just turning 15. Because my birthday's in September, so it would have been just the start of that year. I was turning 15. And we did a big bash, and I played a couple of originals with my band and also a couple of covers. I think it was Oasis and something like that. And it was pretty much like, I literally was like, I'm loving this. I'm on stage in front of, 400 people, and the vibe is awesome, and I love the experience. And ever since then, I was pretty sure that I was going to do it if I could.
So at a young age, like that, a teenager, any big-time nerves when you're out there performing, originally?
So it's really weird. I know everybody's different, but I get, butterflies like anybody would a little bit for a show. But even then, I just enjoyed the adrenaline. And I was nervous up till I started. Okay. And then when I actually am on stage, I'm not nervous at all, which is weird. I was actually way more nervous. I played tennis for Northern Ireland for a long time. And I was way more nervous on a tennis court than I ever was on, put me right now in front of 1 million people and I'll perform as best as I possibly can and I'll give it my all. But put me in front of a stadium and I have to play tennis, I probably wouldn't, my arm would shake, So, yeah, a little weird how your nerves work, on and off stage.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Sometimes your biggest critics are your family and friends. What was their response when you decide, it's one thing to say, hey, I want to be a musician, I want to write, but what was the reaction from your family and friends?
Well, like I said, honestly, my family and friends were always supportive. We had a group of 10 guys who hung out from sort of 13 to 18, and sort of 9 of them were musicians. It's not that was how it was. It's just that everybody else was doing it, so everybody else picked it up. Mm-hmm. So I still keep in contact with them. I had my band that we toured around playing all the party music and stuff, kind of like what Simple does now. Mm-hmm. And then I had my original band that I was playing with some guys, and they were all people in my school. Mm-hmm. So, and my dad was always super supportive because he's a big music guy. He's not musical at all, terrible. But I definitely didn't get my musical talent from him. But he always encouraged me because he was, he was a big 70s rock fan. He loved The Who, he loves Pink Floyd, and so that influenced me greatly. In fact, one of my favorite albums of all time is when the Eagles got back together. They had the Hell Freezes Over live album, and that literally changed my entire view of how songs should be written. And I went back to the drawing board after that and started writing 10 songs every month for a while.
Now, with a lot of great talent, it's sometimes they can come up with the words and someone comes up with the music, but since you're doing both of them, how difficult is that?
I don't know. I think it's, creativity is different for everybody. Some people are, just yesterday we were in here recording and writing for our new Semple record, and magic just seemed to happen. It just seems to happen in this room. I don't know if it's the right vibe, but, I just had this one piano part, and I went, you know what, that sounds really cool. Let me play it for the guys. And the next minute we were jamming this beautiful love song that came out of nowhere with some beautiful Valentine playing guitar and Johnny finding the groove, and Josh just had this great bass line going. I was like, wow, that came out of one cool chord that I had played by accident on the piano and had mistakenly written it out wrong too. When I was trying to transcribe it, I was thinking it was this chord when it was actually this chord, and the next minute you have a song. So it can be difficult. Some songs take me a month to write, and some songs take me 20 minutes to write, and it's always different. Plus, my method is always different on purpose so that I can try and be original every time. I don't want any song to sound like a song I did before, and that's, I think, harder than, that's almost harder than the writing itself, is to stay original,
And when and why did you come over and leave your country?
I was offered to sing for the band Seventh Heaven here locally. It was 2006. I got offered the job in August, and I moved in October. It was literally a 2-month thing. At first I thought it was like a spam thing. You get those sort of things on social media. But it turned out to be real. He had seen me perform at some of the big arenas that I'd done at home. I had the honor of doing some of the best venues on earth. The O2 Arena, the Royal Albert Hall, things like that. And he had saw some videos of me doing Queen and Bon Jovi and all these things, and he was like, this guy can do what I need him to do. So I came over. I had about 7 years with them, but I ended up going back to help them even when I'd left. And it was a real long amount. It was a long 7 years. It was a fun 7 years, but we did close to 1,400 shows, I think, in 7 years. And it was fun because I was young, but I could never have kept it up, and I didn't ever want to keep it up. You know what I mean? I wanted to have my own band and be in control and be able to, be in control of how the money's made and things like that. Just so that it wasn't just working to work, it was working to live, because I like to enjoy my life while I'm living it. I don't just want to work and then retire, so.
Now, is there a difference in writing music or playing music for, the American crowd versus the overseas crowd at all?
I guess, yeah. I mean, a lot of people are more critical and pessimistic, I think, where I'm from. It's just a national trait with British people, We're very kind of like, oh, get a real job, and I don't mean that against them because I'm one of them too, but I noticed that one thing I noticed about America when I first came here was if I say to somebody in a bar or at a restaurant, if the subject comes up, what do you do? And I'm a musician, singer, they're so immediately super interested. They want to know what you're doing. It's so exciting. Whereas if you do that in Britain, they'd be like, oh, God, he's a hippie or whatever, whatever. Just the reactions are different, so I definitely like the attitude of the American culture when it comes to music or arts in general. I think people are very like, oh, you're writing a play. Oh, tell me about it. Whereas if it was back home, it would be like, ugh, come on, really? Writing a play? So that would be the big difference, I think.
Talking about your beginning before Seventh Heaven, you're part of One True Voice.
Mm-hmm.
And for the people out there, if you want to look it up, I mean, what was the experience of just that, you're playing with your band, but then you're part of this television show and the thing put together. What was going through your head when that opportunity happened for you?
I was still pretty young when that happened. I had just turned 21. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I've made it, one of those sort of feelings. And to be fair, to some degree, I guess you could say I had made it. I won a TV show that was like any other of the big, sort of reality things. And it felt amazing in the time, and they were showcasing our abilities. I was a drummer and a guitar player, and I could sing and I could write, and they were showcasing that for all of the guys in our band. But as soon as we became the band and the show was over, they kind of pigeonholed us into this boy bandy type thing, and I mean, it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what a lot of the guys in the band wanted. The younger kids were fine with it in the band because they were 16, 17. Like, to them, didn't matter what they were doing. But it was, for us, just didn't feel right. So it was awesome, and it's something I'll always remember. I'll remember all how it was set up and how we did it. But I'm glad that I did it for many reasons, but the most would be that it gave me the opportunity to be seen, and then I got those big arena tours because of it. And that led, of course, to being brought over here, and then I've been here 13 years now and had, easily the best 13 years of my career since. So, if it wasn't for that, it wouldn't have been for that. If it wasn't for that, it wouldn't have been for that. It's a big, long line of things falling into place.
Of that experience with that group, what was the highlight of that, if you like to look at the memories of that experience? What was a special memory for that?
Well, for me, I got to write 2 songs with Rick Astley. Mm-hmm. And I know that a lot of people just know him from Never Gonna Give You Away. Can't help but dance like that. But he was this unbelievably talented singer. I'm sure everybody would agree. But also a brilliant musician. In the studio, I was blown away. I actually learned a lot from him of how to do kind of everything, and be a jack of all trades, as they say. And we wrote 2 songs together. I still love them. Still think they're awesome. And that was a highlight for me. Probably just observing the experience of how they did the TV show. Seeing how it went from what you did to what people saw on screen after, and just how much work went into that. That I learned a lot from that. So, and just even like this, like how the microphones and the cameras and stuff like that. Just it was enlightening from a technical standpoint.
Now, how challenging was it, in terms of chemistry, in terms of getting together as a musician? That wasn't your band that you put together or you selected. It was kind of, put together for you. Was that challenging at all in any way?
Yeah, I mean, we all had different ideas of what we wanted to do and different styles. The 2 young guys, they were into whatever really modern pop was out at the time. My drummer Daniel was super into all the old school Prince and Stevie Wonder and all this stuff, and he was a brilliant funk drummer. Anton was into hip hop, R&B, and then there was me, who was so out of place it was unbelievable, like the rocker. I had the shaved head at the time, and then I sort of let it grow throughout the show and stuff, but I just did not fit in at all. But we did well when we were together. It's just that it was too already too contrived. They already decided what we were going to do, what we were going to wear. It felt very constricted. So that was the downside to it. But also, I got to record and sit for months on end in the studio where like the Kylie Minogue stuff was done, all the Rick Astley stuff was done. Like some of the most famous 80s songs of all time were recorded where I sat. And I think about things like that more than, about what else could have been or whatever.
Well, speaking of studios, we're in your studio here, and you were showing us earlier on your computer. Mm-hmm. Is it common now for musicians you do a lot of mixing, you do a lot of stuff like that. Is it common now for musicians to do their own stuff like that?
Very. I think it's because it's affordable. With the technology has made it that, what's now in a tiny little computer on software used to take this entire room and equipment. So like you'd have 20 compressors on a wall and 20 valve amps and these huge big like processors and stuff. Now you have a little iPad or something, or a Mac, or a PC, and it goes into a decent set of speakers. You have a decent set of screens, and for basically like $1,000 you can have a decent studio. I obviously I'm lucky to have spent a little bit more than that, but certainly people can do a really good recording with very little now. Even a good mic would cost you maybe $200 or $300, and that would be enough to get all the input that you would need to create a masterpiece, you know. So it's great that it's affordable, it's compact, can all fit in one room, and anybody can do it if they have the funds. So
We'll be right back with more of Hero Television as we're spending part 1 with Keith Semple.
Hi, everybody. This is Tony Ocean, and you're watching Hero TV, where everybody's a hero.
We're back on Hero Television talking to the one, the only Keith Semple, who I've seen perform. It's electric. It's a one-of-a-kind performance, and learning so much about you. Before we get into what you're doing now, one question I think a lot of people probably ask you is when you perform in the UK versus the fans here, what was the fans like touring there? Because, you know, people see seas of people. The fans are just, it's a kind of a different vibe where, you know, you don't see that in the States as much. I mean, just the sea of crowd, the fandemonium. What's the difference between the crowds that you've seen over there and here?
It's hard to gauge because the two things were different. I was known over here for my, like, rockabilly and my performance and my my guitaring and stuff. But over there, I was just another boy band guy. So, like, it was a lot of young girls that were screaming for you, you know, type of a thing. Whereas over here, it's all ages come out to a show, you know, and obviously if it's over 21. But, you know, there's a lot of all ages festivals and things. So it's hard to compare the two. At the time, obviously, being on TV for, you know, 3 months every week, I was so well known that it did get a little awkward at times. But I made a deal with myself right at the start that I was always going to give everybody the time that if they asked for it, you know. So even if I was out eating at a restaurant and somebody was like bugging me to sign something, I'd be like, okay, I'll sign it and be nice, because I figured I didn't want to ever get that. I always wanted to have that reputation where people could say they've met me, and they get, you know, they don't get the haven't slept in 4 days me. They get the you know, they get the real me when I'm normal, you know, not tired.
And then when you came over with Seventh Heaven, what was that experience like? Because, I mean, we've covered Seventh Heaven on the show. We know the tour schedule that they put you on. But, you know, what was your first reaction when you actually did on tour and for a long period of time?
I mean, for the first 3 years, I loved it. And I got to do something really cool. We played a thing called Melodic Rock Fest. I think it was 2007. I'll never forget the experience. I could but just always mess up which year it was. But I got to sing with one of my heroes, a guy called Eric Martin, who sings for Mr. Big. And I'll never forget it. And I remember we all sung our songs and stuff. And then at the end, they were doing like a group song where all the lead singers went up to sing. And I didn't know the song because it was we're an American band, which you guys all know, but I'd never even heard it before. And he pulled me up from backstage on the stage. He goes, "What? Come on!" I was like, "No, it's fine." It's like, "You're the lead singer too. You should be out here." Now this was the lead singer of Survivor, Night Ranger, Nelson Brothers, Eric Martin. There was you name it, the list of 80s icons, and I'm like, okay. And I didn't know the song. I told him, I don't know this one. He's like, oh yeah, you're not from here, are you? And I was like, nope, I've never heard we're an American band. So then I just sort of like went around the crowd and held the mic and clapped and had a good time. But that was just like a really cool affirmation to have him say like, you're worthy of this, you know, to come up and join us right now. That felt really, really cool. That was one of my best early memories. I could still handle the gigging schedule if I really had to. It was just really taxing, you know, it was tiring, it was too much, it was, you know, my voice was gone permanently, and I had to find it from show to show. So I had to, you know, just, it was always, is my voice going to work tonight type of a thing, or I need to sleep between this show and this show so I have a chance of singing. It's because I want every show I do to be at such a high standard that you just can't meet that standard if you're doing 14 days in a row or something, which we've done.
Yeah.
So, and I will never do again.
You mentioned, keeping your voice strong. As a musician, as a singer, what kind of stuff do you have to do, on your off days or the days you're going to perform, extra stuff to keep your voice?
I just try to hydrate, and I try to rest when possible. I try not to talk, which is difficult for me because I'm the chattiest person on earth, so that can be a problem. Because I'm in charge of my schedule now, I just try to schedule appropriately. Like if I'm doing a Friday, Saturday, I might not take a solo show on a Thursday, right? I might make it a Wednesday, or I might take it off and I try to spread it out. In a perfect world, I would sing like a Monday, Thursday, Saturday, all the time. But there's not many shows on a Monday, and life doesn't work that way. So in the summertime, I just say, sod it. I'm just gonna take whatever. When the show comes in, if it's good and it's what I want, I'm gonna take it regardless of how many shows in a row it is. So sometimes we'll end up doing 4 maybe shows in a row, but that's about my limit these days. And luckily, I've got 2 great singers in my band, and well, actually 3, because Johnny's great too. It's just he doesn't need to sing because the 3 of us are doing it. So Valentine, can do his songs and give me a break, and so can Josh. So that helps a lot. Now, plus, we're spending a lot of time right now in the studio learning new songs, so that we have so much to choose from that the set's always going to be a little different for everybody. Nobody's ever going to quite know what they're going to hear, which is awesome. So.
Do you have to do a lot of vocal exercises and stuff like that?
Valentine does. I tend to just kind of try to keep quiet for a couple of hours before the show, and other than saying a few quick hellos to people or whatever, I try to keep it to a minimum, and then I just do a little trill warm-ups where you're doing the stuff. You're just trying to waking it up a little bit. But I find that doing vocal warm-ups for me is basically like more singing. So it's like adding more singing to your day. I'm sure a lot of vocal coaches are listening to me right now wanting to strangle me, but it's the truth. I just try to hydrate, and I also try to take care of myself physically too. I like to stay really fit and get a lot of sleep. I think sleep's probably the most important thing. I strive to get 9 hours a night, which I know a lot of people can't even get close to sometimes, but because of my schedule, other than when I'm going from show to show on a weekend, I can make that happen if I want to, if I'm prepared to go to bed at 10 or whatever. And my daughters are up for school, but as long as I'm willing to go to bed early enough, I can make that work. So it's really just to get enough sleep so your throat can heal,
And the other thing that we saw besides, your success over in Europe, also in Chicago, which led to The Voice. Tell us how that all happened, because a lot of people have seen you, they were cheering for you, they were rooting for you, and a lot of people in Chicago are like, I know him.
It's really funny because those shows I never actually entered myself for. My granny entered me for the British one.
Okay.
I was entered by a friend of mine for American Idol in 2009, and I got through and everything, but I didn't have my green card finalized, and they threw me out. So that one never entered myself for. And then The Voice was the same. The girl who works for me, Leanne, she entered me without my knowledge. I got a call to come down to Chicago and kind of skip the lines,
Wow.
And I went down and did the interview, and they took me off to do the blind audition, So it was just, and then for me it was just like I kept getting through. It's like, oh, I got through another round, cool. And yeah, it was really cool. I mean, the one thing I'll say is the Chicago fans are unbelievable. Probably the best experience of the whole thing was they all sort of sneaked and organized a surprise at the airport, and about 50 people turned up at the airport right as I was heading in to go to my next thing, and with placards and signs and screaming, and everybody was just like, who is this? What's going on? And I just was like, really? That's just unbelievably awesome. And I think that was probably one of my favorite things of the whole experience. But honestly, being a musician, my favorite part of The Voice itself was the after party on the night that the rap party, because I got to play. I just get up and jam with everyone, and Adam Levine was playing drums, and I was singing Guns N' Roses, and Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani are sitting just at the side of the stage, going like, oh, that's great, and the guitar player that was doing all the music you hear, all the amazing musicians, and I'm like, I'm really doing this right now. This is so cool, you know? So that, for me, was actually more fun than all the actual show and all the performances put together.
It's been spending the last half hour of part 1 with Keith Semple, so you're going to have to stay tuned next month for part 2, but we're going to have a special musical treat from the man himself. So sit back for this musical treat by Keith Semple, and thank you once again for watching Hero Television. I've been your host, Paul Myers, along with Johngy and the man himself, Keith Semple. So we'll see you next month here on Hero Television.
Happy hour, you say, the best part of the day. Hey to Jack and Jim, they're my favorite friends. They keep saying it's too early, but I just can't wait. Back to rum in the rye, going to the bottom where the bottle's dry. Oh no, we don't care, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. My, we all know why, going to the bottom where the bottle's dry. Oh no, we don't care, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Raise your glass in style to the Emerald Isle, where it all began. My heart, my home, my clan. They keep saying it's too early, but I just don't care. Back to rum in the rye, going to the bottom where the bottle's dry. Oh no, we don't care, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. My, we all know why, going to the bottom where the bottle's dry. Oh no, we don't care, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Da 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 da. They keep saying it's too early, but I just don't care. Back to rum in the rye, going to the bottom where the bottle's dry. Oh no, we don't care, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. My, we all know why, going to the bottom where the bottle's dry. Oh no, we don't care, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Da 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 da. Happy hour, you say, the best part of the day. Hey to Jack and Jim, they're my favorite friends. They keep saying it's too early, but I just can't wait. Back to rum in the rye,